The world can prepare a person for loneliness, heartbreak, and disappointment, but nothing can prepare a man for the impossible. On a bright spring morning, beneath a cloudless blue sky, a single father walked into a crowded charity garden festival expecting nothing more than another ordinary day. Instead, one glance across a field of blooming white roses stopped his heart. Standing beneath the sunlight was the woman he had buried 20 years ago. She looked older, wiser, but unmistakably alive. And beside her stood a young woman in her early 20s whose face carried his unmistakable blue eyes. In that single heartbeat, everything he believed about love, loss, and the past shattered into pieces. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that love can survive even the greatest storms, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps bring more heartfelt stories like this to people around the world. For nearly 2 decades, Adrian Mercer had built his life around silence. At 48 years old, he was respected throughout his small town as a dependable carpenter who could fix almost anything except the emptiness inside his own heart. 20 years earlier, tragedy had stolen the woman he loved just weeks after she disappeared during a devastating flood that swept through a nearby mountain road. Rescue teams searched for days before finding a damaged vehicle downstream. The authorities declared there were no survivors, and with no body ever recovered, everyone accepted that his wife, Serena, had been lost forever. At the time, Adrian had been left with a newborn son named Owen. Raising a child while carrying unimaginable grief felt impossible. Every birthday reminded him of the family they should have been. Every Mother's Day forced him to invent stories about a woman Owen never had the chance to know. Adrian never remarried. Friends tried introducing him to kind women over the years, but he always smiled politely before returning home to the quiet house where framed photographs remained untouched on the mantel. His love had never truly died. It had simply learned how to exist beside pain. The years slowly transformed Owen into a compassionate young man. Now 20 years old, he had inherited his father's humility and determination. Together they repaired old homes for struggling families, often refusing payment when they knew someone was facing hardship. People admired the father and son for their generosity, never realizing every act of kindness was Adrian's way of honoring the woman he believed was watching from heaven. That Saturday morning, Owen convinced his father to attend the annual community garden fundraiser. Adrian rarely accepted invitations, but the sunshine was warm, flowers stretched endlessly across the park, and children laughed as musicians played gentle acoustic songs beneath colorful tents. It felt like the kind of peaceful day Serena would have loved. Then everything changed. Across the crowded garden stood a woman arranging bouquets at a charity booth. Adrian's hands began trembling before his mind even understood why. The way she tilted her head while smiling. The familiar posture. The tiny birthmark near her left eyebrow. Time seemed to freeze. His heartbeat thundered louder than the music around him. The impossible woman slowly looked up, and her eyes met his. She froze too. Neither moved. Beside her stood a young woman with long chestnut hair tied into a simple ponytail. She laughed at something another volunteer said before turning toward Adrian. The moment their eyes met, Adrian felt another shock even greater than the first. Those brilliant blue eyes staring back at him were identical to his own. The world disappeared around him. His breathing became uneven as memories crashed into the present. He remembered holding Serena's hand during quiet evenings. He remembered promising to grow old together. He remembered grieving over an empty grave. Now she stood only a few yards away. The woman whispered his name almost silently, and tears instantly filled her eyes. Adrian walked forward slowly, afraid she might vanish like a dream if he moved too quickly. Every step felt unreal until only a few feet separated them. Neither reached out. Neither knew whether touching the other would confirm reality or destroy it. The young woman looked from Serena to Adrian with visible confusion before quietly stepping aside. Serena's face carried the weight of 20 years of sorrow. Lines of hardship surrounded eyes that had once sparkled with youthful joy. Whatever life had given her after the flood had clearly demanded an enormous price. As emotions overwhelmed them, Serena finally explained the impossible truth. The flood had carried her miles downstream before she was rescued unconscious by an isolated family living deep within another state. She suffered severe memory loss caused by a traumatic brain injury. With no identification surviving the accident and no memories remaining, doctors believed she had no family searching for her. Years passed before fragments of her identity slowly returned, but by then she had been living under another name. She had built a quiet life while desperately trying to remember who she truly was. Then another heartbreaking revelation followed. Several months after the accident, Serena discovered she had been pregnant without realizing it before the flood. The stress and injuries delayed every sign doctors normally would have expected. She eventually gave birth to a daughter she named Claire. Claire. The young woman standing beside her. Adrian's own daughter. The daughter he never knew existed. No words could describe what 20 years stolen from a father truly felt like. Claire looked at Adrian with tears filling her eyes as she slowly realized the stranger standing before her wasn't merely someone from her mother's forgotten past. He was her father. Adrian had missed her first smile. He had missed teaching her to ride a bicycle. He had missed school performances, birthdays, scraped knees, graduation ceremonies, and countless bedtime stories. Entire decades had vanished without either of them knowing. The heartbreak was almost unbearable. Yet beneath the grief grew something unexpected. Hope. Over the following weeks, the impossible slowly became reality. Adrian, Owen, Serena, and Claire began meeting almost every day. Awkward conversations gradually transformed into shared laughter. Family photographs that should have existed years earlier were finally taken beneath bright afternoon skies. Claire discovered she shared her father's passion for woodworking. Owen found himself amazed by the sister fate had hidden from him his entire life. Still, healing was not simple. Adrian struggled with guilt, wondering whether he should have searched longer all those years ago. Serena blamed herself for circumstances she could never control. Claire quietly mourned a childhood without the father she had unknowingly wished for during countless school events where other children proudly hugged their dads. One afternoon, Adrian found an old oak tree overlooking a peaceful lake. The family gathered there with a picnic beneath warm daylight. They spoke honestly about everything that had been stolen from them, not with anger, but with understanding. They realized none of them had chosen this tragedy. Life had simply taken an unimaginable turn. Instead of mourning only what had been lost, they chose to celebrate what still remained. Adrian built Claire a handcrafted wooden music box engraved with the words, "20 years could not break family." When she opened it, tears streamed down her face as the soft melody filled the afternoon air. It was the first gift from a father she had waited for without ever knowing. Serena planted a white rose bush beside Adrian's workshop, explaining that flowers bloom again every spring no matter how harsh the winter becomes. It became a quiet reminder that hope often survives long after people stop expecting miracles. Neighbors who learned the family's story were deeply moved. Some called it unbelievable. Others called it destiny. Adrian simply called it grace. Months later, the family organized a charity event for families separated by disasters, raising funds to help reconnect missing loved ones. Their story inspired hundreds of strangers never to give up searching for hope, even when every circumstance insisted it had disappeared forever. Adrian often watched Owen and Claire laughing together while Serena smiled nearby, and although the missing years could never be returned, he finally understood something profound. Life does not always give people the ending they imagined. Sometimes it gives them a second beginning instead. If pain had taught him endurance, love had now taught him forgiveness. The family portrait hanging above his fireplace was no longer missing pieces. It had simply taken 20 years to become complete. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire so more people can experience stories that remind us love never truly disappears. Special request: before this story ends, please comment one word, hope, if you believe miracles can still happen when people refuse to give up. As the sun slowly set over another peaceful day, Adrian realized that miracles rarely arrive with thunder or flashing lights. Sometimes they walk quietly through a garden filled with white roses, carrying familiar eyes and forgotten memories, waiting for the perfect moment to bring a broken family home again. And in that golden afternoon, after 20 years of unbearable silence, a father finally found not only the wife he thought death had taken, but also the daughter whose eyes had been searching for him since the day she was born. Some stories end with goodbye. The most unforgettable ones begin with a second chance.